Hello, beautiful people. I'm Elizabeth Molina. I'm a mother, a model on a mission, speaker, a certified life and health coach, as well as a licensed esthetician with a focus in post-op lymphatic drainage. I'm also trained in face gym. Many call me their beauty guru because of my curiosity, knowledge, and passion for the concept of beauty in the modern world. This is definitely the place to be if you're into bio, beauty, and life hacking and understanding the why of your beauty routine. If that's you, then you're in the right place. Are you ready for your glow up session? Today we have a special guest. Her name is Trish Barillas. She has been a life coach for over a decade, specializing in anxiety, breakups, and job advancements. Trish is the author of the first ever Instabook, A Face of Anxiety, an autobiography of her journey living with anxiety and panic disorders. She is also the founder of 3GS charity, Gifts and Goals for Guatemala, where she helps raise funds for rural villages in Guatemala. Trish likes to call herself a creator of positive change. Welcome to the show, Trish. Welcome to the show. Did I miss anything?
No, you hit everything. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I think I did though, because I saw that you're also a farmer.
Oh, yes. So, my father owns a farm in Guatemala. So by default, I'm now a farmer. So this is all new for me in the past like 5 years, but I'm very much a tomboy and I do love farming
I love it. I wish I could be there.
now.
Okay, so let's get started. What is your why for having a good relationship with yourself? Like, where do you understand who you are and who you're not, and what you do and don't like?
So I feel like these questions are it's such a journey, it's such a process because in my 20s, I was trying to do what was cool, right? Like what sounds cool? Like what sounds good when I talk to my friend? And then in my 30s, I started questioning like, wait, what do I like? So I started to do more self-evaluation more so in my early 30s. And then in my 40s, I was like, well, this is who I am. Like this is exactly who I am. So the journey for me of the why is really like your foundation, like why my why of trying to figure out like who I am and what I stand for is really like your building blocks because without the why, then we don't really know what we're doing. We're not stable. So a lot of people are always saying like, well, I don't know who I am. And that's okay to not know, but then there starts your journey, right? So like that's now where we got to do the work. And it's really about having more in-depth conversations with yourself, which people tend to shy away from. So for me, especially being an anxiety sufferer, I had to battle more of the whys because I didn't understand why all of it was happening. And then I went straight to the, oh, wait, okay, so how do I make this better? How do I make my life fulfilled and meaningful? So that process started in my late 20s, but then I really started to nail it in the 30s.
Awesome. So, I have to ask, when, we talk about relationships and we think about relationships, we think we're talking about like a romantic partner, or sometimes we think about friends, or I think sometimes family may come last when we think of the word relationships. But earlier you and I were speaking about how you have to cultivate a relationship with yourself, and that's like the foundation for having better relationships in general. And being an anxiety sufferer and a life coach, what really, I mean, like, what got you to connect the dots and to say, I have anxiety, I'm okay talking about it, I'm okay doing the work because I want to have that relationship with myself? And I ask because I know that in today's times we're going through so many things right now. It's so important for our listeners to get, a little bit of advice on dealing with anxiety and relationships with yourself, with social media. I mean, you had amazing posts
on Instagram and your YouTube channel where you talk about all these little pieces that, help you live a better life.
What I love to say about this is when you're in a plane, and they were those like old school videos when the masks fall down and they say, put the mask on yourself first and then onto others, because you need to help yourself first, because then you won't be useful. I think of this in the same way as a relationship with myself, because the first relationship that we ever have is with ourselves. That's your house. This is our house, this is our vessel. And with anxiety, I was scared to death of myself. I was scared of my thoughts. I was scared of judgment. I was scared of, what I viewed as normal versus what I was going through. And then when I finally understood that all I had to do was figure out my relationship to me. I knew that I had to fix me, and I had to feel safe in my body and in my thoughts. And then I was able to cultivate better relationships around me. When we speak about relationships in general, I think about energy, right? Because we all kind of vibrate, and that's how you attract people. It's law of attraction. So if I'm vibrating a certain way and so are you, then you and I will probably connect. So what I love, and I can't recall who said it, the quote is, your energy introduces you before you do. And I find this to be so true. So that's where I was like, wow, what is my energy saying about myself? Like, am I coming across anxious, insecure, scared? Like, and that's when I realized, like, okay, let me figure out me, and how to change the way that I was coming off and the way that I viewed myself. And as that happened, everything else started to change. The way people would respond to me, because I'm coming with a certain energy and they're going to match it or they're going to move on. Right. So it's kind of a nice deterrent if you think about it, because like attracts like. So energetically, I love when we are kind of like in our bodies. That's when I feel very aligned. So the more that I kept doing it, the more that I wanted it. And then now it's kind of just who I am.
Right.
But it's a practice. It's a skill.
It's a muscle. So you're working on it and you're building it.
Yes.
Awesome. So for our listeners, what got you there? Like, what got you to recognize that maybe, hey, what's my energy saying about me? Like, what made you feel that way?
For myself, just because I do tend to be on the more anxious spectrum, I noticed that people were very uncomfortable around me when I was younger, because I was very headstrong. I was in a male dominated field. I mean, I was just like, no bullshit. Like, so I just thought to myself, that's not who I really am. Like, I am very open and loving, and it might take a bit to get there, but I realized that it wasn't matching. And that was some of the feedback I had gotten from some of my employees. And then I started really analyzing, like, okay, how do I want to show up to myself and to the world? And it took a lot of alone time. That's where I noticed I was doing more of the like aha moments, is when I was really able to be alone with myself. And whether that was in nature, in a different country. For me, it's Guatemala, where I'm from, because it's very grounding. And on the farm, there's no electricity, there's no Wi-Fi. Like, it is a drop zone. So you're there. Yo, it's lovely. And I just thought, man, I'm getting so revived by being here. Like, I'm getting something from this land and from myself. So I always make sure I go back as much as possible and bring as many people there as possible too, to share. So I'm like, oh my God, the land, it will change your life. So I think everybody's got to find their peace, right? Their grounding, whether that's in a land, whether that's with themselves, with nature, with meditation. I don't know what it is, but there is something.
So what was the first step that you took initially? Like, what was that before, like the inventory, like after you took inventory, after you were, first of all, able to accept or search for, like, I don't want to use acceptance. You were able to process that input that you were getting from people. You were able to listen, because sometimes it could go the other way. You could,
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. Everyone's wrong.
Right.
So you were open to that, and you accepted it very graciously. And you're like, okay, I see that I can improve, or, whatever that, what was the first step that, like, if you can close your eyes and think to yourself, what did I do first to, like, start this journey?
So I was running nightclubs back in the day. So that was my, that was where I was. And it was a very male dominated field. And I was a manager, and I'm not that tall. I'm 5'2". So like there was a lot of challenges there, and a woman. So, when I actually don't, I like the word accept, because that's what happens. I
Yeah.
did have to go through an acceptance, and I portrayed myself as being a perfectionist and being great at what I did, and like I made sure I built this idea of who I was to the outside world, and I was not going to shatter it. And then when I finally let go of all that crap, um, and I accepted who I was, like, yes, I am someone with anxiety and panic disorder and OCD tendencies. Yes, I am. So I'm not perfect. And when I let that happen and I let go of it, and I started sharing my story, and then I got all the calls from everyone I've ever worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that blew my mind, because I just tried so hard to be this perfect idea of like a badass woman. And I was like, you know what? I can still be that way with exactly who I am and what I was struggling with. So the acceptance was actually my first step. Accept who I was and where I was at whatever point in my life. And then from there, then I moved on. So acceptance is always, for me, one of the first steps.
Not for nothing, but you say you have anxiety, you struggle with it, you're like, you walk with your fear, right? You're like facing it head on, and you're like doing all this amazing work. But then I'm thinking to myself, you're 5'2", you're working at the nightclubs with all these like tall big guys, and you're like, I mean, that gives me anxiety just thinking.
It really helped my anxiety being in nightlife, because it's a controlled chaos. You don't have much time to think, because you're constantly putting out fires and running around, and it's managing. It worked for so many years, and distractions work for so many years,
Right.
and hence why we're in this era of mental health right now, because COVID took away everybody's distractions. They can't be, in a million meetings and going to lunch meetings and dinner meetings and events and play dates and this and that. And all of a sudden things just slow down. It comes back to basics of like just you and your social bubble, your little pod,
Yes.
whatever your pod is. And now you're faced with your demons that you didn't want to look at. But that happened to me at such an earlier time in life, which I was so thankful for. But yeah, nightlife actually soothed my anxiety. And I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but my brain needed to be engaged so much, so to the point where I didn't have to deal with how I felt.
No, thank you for explaining that, because I as you're talking, and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, like just the thought, picturing that I'm getting a little bit of anxiety, just like putting it all together. So like, not only are you this amazing life coach, but you're like a badass, like real warrior who was out there like doing all the groundwork. I'm so honored to have you on here.
Oh, thank you.
So we talk about anxiety, we talk about relationships with ourselves, and this is a beauty podcast as well. So how can you relate beauty and anxiety and our relationship with ourselves? Like, how does that come in your perspective? How does that tie in?
It is perspective, right? So I gravitate to people that feel good. I gravitate to those people who are glowing, not because they're stunningly beautiful or they're wearing like an amazing outfit. I'll take note of that, but that's not what I gravitate towards. And people want to be around others that feel good, that really kind of inspire them. So your inner beauty, who you are as a person, will always come forward. It just will. And I think that's what's making such a huge shift in this world right now. Now that we're all virtual and we're all sharing, it's like, okay, well, who are you? Sure, you might look great and have this, that, but who are you? And do I want you? Do I need you in my circle? Are you part of my beauty tribe, my healing tribe, my spiritual tribe? Like, where do you fall? They're just people who love, whether it's makeup, and they have such a love for it that I appreciate it, and I appreciate that gift of theirs, that they can, and they want to share it. I myself come from a non-makeup wearing family. We just never wore it. It was never around me. And I'm so excited because I just don't have to ever wear it, ever. Especially in this, in this COVID world. I'm like, this is awesome. And whatever makes you feel good. So it could be like, for me, my self-care is oil. I love facial oils. I'm obsessed with them. They work for me, and that is my beauty go-to. And then being able to do that and have a bath, that is what makes me happy. And then I appreciate everyone else that are like, oh, I found this amazing XYZ. And I have girlfriends who are fantastic at their beauty regimen. And they're the people I call and ask to come with me when I'm like, hey, I have to get makeup for my wedding. I don't know what I'm doing. Come help me, So I think now everybody's appreciating where everyone's at. It's not like a one size fits all. Like, oh, you have to look like this and you have to be like that. Like, no, I think it's changing, and I think everybody's owning their own style, and I think that's what makes people beautiful. If you know who you are and you own what you wear and how you wear it, that's all I need. This last week, I went to a restaurant in pajamas. I didn't care. I was like, hey, I'm in it. We're in it. Let's just make it work, right?
It sounded so fun though.
Yeah, I rolled up in pajamas, and it was great. I had so much fun.
Amazing. So, I mean, obviously, beauty is not just makeup or not makeup. It's that glow that you're talking about that I love to talk about, because it's not just superficial. Like you said, it's a vibe, it's an energy, it's the work that you do on yourself. It's like your light attracts other light. In today's climate with COVID and all these Zoom meetings, there's a lot of anxiety that's being, I don't want to say relieved, but like people are relieved because they don't have to put on the face, the hair. So there's like, I feel like there's like an exchange of anxiety, if that's even a thing, where like I'm exchanging my anxiety for getting what the world says that I should look like to go to work or to be functioning or whatever it is. And let's exchange that for a different kind of anxiety, whether it's, just being on a Zoom all day, or homeschooling, or elections. I feel like there's like an exchange to that. And, there's a relief of anxiety in that sense, in terms of relationship with ourselves. But now with social media, with everything, there's like a different kind of anxiety.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is a whole different ballgame. I mean, first, the COVID in general brought a different type of anxiety. We're going to be dealing with many layers of this. Children are going to be affected in a much different way than we don't even know of right now. Health anxiety has spiked. There's so many different buckets to anxiety. There's like social, health, panic disorder, agoraphobia. I mean, there's so many. And right now it's like, okay. And then even just last week, the election anxiety. I mean, people were not sleeping. People were, I never wake up in the middle of the night and check my phone, but I did. I was like, what, did I miss something? I mean, same. As I was telling you earlier, I woke up and ate pizza for breakfast. I didn't care. I was so anxious. I needed to just self-soothe. And at this point in our lives, we just have to surrender to the things that we can't control, and then just be mindful of the things that we can, right? And we don't know, what's to come. 10 years ago, I would say like, oh, let's take things maybe 1 year at a time. Then 2 years ago, I was like, let's take things 5 months at a time. Now, I'm like, let's take it one day because I don't know what's happening tomorrow. And that's
Mhm.
just a different mentality. That is just a whole different mentality that we're not used to. So we need to figure out how to cope. Absolutely. I always say that anxiety jumps, it'll jump from one thing to another thing. And we just have to be mindful of how we are viewing ourselves. And also, the one thing I will say about the whole Zoom, not having to be full face and hair,
Mhm.
we're now in people's homes. Like, think about it. There's
Yeah.
newscasters and journalists, and they're in their homes, and you're like looking around. Oh, what you got over there? Oh, is that a fireplace? Oh, look at your pictures. I mean, we're it's so personal.
Yes.
On your Zoom meetings, like, okay, now I know you have a dog. I have a dog. Sometimes the kids will come in. I mean, there's so much life happening, and we're all just going with it. But we've made
Yes.
things so personal, and I kind of think that's beautiful because you get a glimpse of someone's life, like I'm in your home.
Yes.
You know?
And I'm in yours.
Right.
That is true. How do you in today, like right now, where we don't have access to interact with each other, like physically, right? Like it's so difficult to even like plan a birthday, celebrate anything really, like Halloween. Kids weren't really trick or treating, and it was just so different. How do you cultivate like friendships authentically now? With everything that's happening, we're in such a divide. Like there's so much anxiety in the air, like there's
Yeah.
just no denying it. And people are upset with each other. Families are coming apart because they don't agree with each other's beliefs. There's just so many layers to this, like we spoke earlier, just compounding on top of each other, not making it better. Like, how do you see this? Like, how can you have an authentic relationship, not only with yourself, but with your surroundings in this particular climate, which we haven't seen, I think, ever in the history of humanity. We've never been.
Yeah. So it's based off of, two people, right? So if we're having a disagreement or we have a difference of opinion, um, a lot of people respond to respond, like they're listening to respond. They're not active listening, which means I'm going to hear you and I will listen to why you have certain thoughts,
Okay.
as opposed to people are listening just so they could jump in and give their viewpoint of why they're right. And I don't think that we need to be on a right or a wrong. You're entitled to how you feel. I'm entitled to how I feel. And everybody just has to accept, and that's that word again, acceptance. Accept that there are people from different generations. They were schooled differently. They had different environments. I mean, there's so much at play here that it's impossible for everyone to be on the same page. That's just not that we have free will. That's just not the way that the world works. So we really have to monitor how we respond to each other, and if people are emotionally charged, that is not the time to have a discussion. As we go into these holidays, like, everybody needs to choose to put that aside. Like, there has to be an understanding of, like, okay, if you're part of my social bubble and I go to see you, like, let's not put this on the table until both of us are in a place to actually speak about it where we can hear each other. And with friendships and not seeing people, it's so important to laugh and be with your people. And I myself spent a weekend with one of my girlfriends and her husband, and she's part of my social bubble. And man, I didn't realize how much I needed it. So however you can make that happen in a very safe COVID way, then we have to strive for that. And now that, especially in New York, it's so beautiful. So we have to take advantage of all of the beautiful weather and go outside and meet your people that you can. And I still do Zooms with my girls, just because if we all can't get together, then we still need to know what's going on in each other's lives, and we still laugh. It may not be the same, but it's something.
Yes.
So we have to stay on top of it. Earlier this year, my husband and I canceled our wedding 5 minutes before I was walking down the aisle. And it
I
was
saw that, by the way.
brutal. But and that's where that Zoom started with my girls, because they were so worried. And we were like, this is so nice. Like, we need to just keep this going. And then, COVID went into full pandemic. And then now, even though we're all back in the same city, we all still have like things that we need to do, or we're being safe. So Zoom is really important to us. And there's a million platforms. So
Mhm.
I would say try to push yourselves to at least once a month. Everybody get on and have your peoples, and make it about anything other than, the election or COVID. Like, let's find out what's going on with like your kid or your
Yes.
new place, or a new venture that you're doing.
So what would you say to someone who doesn't have like that bubble, or doesn't have those kinds of friendships for whatever reason in life, they just weren't able to cultivate that? What would you tell these people in this time right now, where they might have depended on, going to like a meetup, or going to like some yoga class, or just going to the coffee shop and like hoping to make friends? Like, how would you tell these people to, I don't know, be connected?
So to be connected, my suggestion is always to join things live. So if there's a live workout class, then join that. One, it keeps you accountable. So now you're like, well, I paid, and now I kind of have to go because I'm one of these people.
That's key, by the way. Like, if when you pay, you feel like,
Yes.
When it's free, you're like, oh, it's okay.
It's fine. I
Yeah.
might get to it. And also finding people that are doing things online that is like, that are smaller, because they're more intimate. And
Yeah.
then you're one of six, which means your face is going to pop up there. You don't get lost in the mix. And there's so much of this going on. Pay what you can, whether it's Reiki, Pilates, like, it could be anything under the sun, and they're out there. Trust me, there's so much out there. But if you could join a live and be part of a smaller group, then I feel that's one way to get connected.
Bringing it back to beauty. And again, beauty is not just like putting on serums and makeup and mascara. Like, it could be, your water intake. It could be movement. Like you said you had some movement and it just changed your mood. And there's so many different aspects to beauty. And even just looking at a beautiful bird can like change your mood. Like, I mean, that happens to me. I look outside and I see like a red bird. I'm like, wow, life is so beautiful again.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the beauty habits that you would share? And when I mean beauty, I mean, again, like, hydrating yourself is so important, and it's so crucial to just, first of all, being alive,
Right.
but also being beautiful. Like, it just helps you be in a better mood. It can, like, maybe you're not going to be craving to eat things because you're just dehydrated. So like, could you share some of your hacks? I mean, I know I saw this morning you had a Four Sigmatic.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's a beauty hack, like you're keeping your body.
Well, I'm conscious about what makes me feel good, right? Like what makes me feel good and what doesn't make me feel bad. And it sounds so simple, but if you think about it, we tend to live in the negative. It's easier to go to a negative mind space, and it's harder to stay in a positive. Part of my hacks, I do something called morning mindfulness. It takes 2 to 3 minutes, and it's something that started with my cat 19 years ago. She just passed, but she would sit on my chest, and she's quite big. So when I couldn't get on my phone because she would knock it out. So in the mornings, she needed 5 minutes, which meant I had to be present for 5 minutes. And then I started realizing, I'm actually better on the days that I'm doing this, because how you wake up is really important, because you don't want to shock your system. Everybody wakes up and they grab their phone and they're on Instagram or TikTok or Snap or emails or CNN. I don't know. But to me, that's like watching The Ring at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, that's scary. Like, I'm not shocking my system at 8 o'clock in the morning. Do you know? Like, I'm not a morning person, so I need to ease in. I need to glide into my day. So when I wake up, I ask myself very simple questions. I'm an avid dreamer, so I have lots and lots of interesting dreams. So I check in with what my dreams were, how I slept, what my body feels like, how am I feeling for the day. So like, can I do a workout? And like when I say a workout, it's different than like my movement. Every day I find 15 minutes of movement. I commit to that. Some days I'm like, I just need to survive. I want to survive the day. Some days I'm like, man, I'm so tired. I need to find some moments of rest today, which means if I can find 5 minutes to just lay down and close my eyes, I want to do that. But I'm setting myself up for the day to feel good. And it only takes 2 to 3 minutes tops, and I can do it everywhere and anywhere that I am. And if I don't have that time to myself, then I'm not on. Like I feel off. So that's something that I commit to, and that makes me feel better because I'm not jarring myself by checking the phone. And then I don't grab my phone until my feet hit the ground. So I do my morning mindfulness. I get up, I grab my phone, I go to the bathroom, I do my whole morning routine, and then when my ass is in a seat, that's when I'll start and say, okay, now let's see what's going on, because I've come to, I can process a little bit better. So I think the way that you wake up to the world is important. I have lots of plants in my apartment. I love them. They all have names, and I talk to them and I miss them, and that makes me feel good. They also are better for my environment. With drinking, I'm a horrible water drinker. But then I realized it's the vehicle I'm using. So I need to not look, it can't be clear. So it can't be clear. And so I have a black corksicle and the top is small. So in a cup, the cup, when it's glass, it's too large of a rim. So it feels overwhelming. And then I can see the liquid, which I also don't like. So, so I realized the key for me to drink water is how am I able to drink it? Do I need to see it? Do I not need to see it? Do I need the hole to be smaller? Do some people like a sucking action? So they like those flip ones.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out what your vehicle is. And then I don't even notice. And I'm like, wow, I must have drank a lot of water today, but I don't want to see it. And that just works for me. So I think finding your vehicle for water is important.
That's amazing that you were able to identify what, why aren't I having enough water, and what is it? Is it the cup? And that's really cool because a lot of people don't realize that it's the vehicle that's
yes.
like throwing them out.
I went through 4 different, I bought a bunch of different, and I was like, this doesn't work. And then the corksicle black, that was it. And I nailed it. And I was like, oh, okay. Solution, problem solved.
Obviously, water intake is great, helpful in everyday, and as we are made up of mostly water. So just going back to this anxiety and this relationship that we're like cultivating with ourselves, how do you deal with having healthy boundaries in terms of yourself? And then when you have healthy boundaries for yourself, then obviously you can have better relationships with people, especially during today's climate. I mean, we spoke a little bit or a lot about it earlier with, holidays coming up and setting your stuff to the side and just coming together. But how, can you give us a little bit more insight on that?
Yeah, when it comes to boundaries, I mean, you're the person that dictates how people will receive you. You really do set that tone. People will only respect you as much as you respect yourself. When I first met my husband, he said, you are one of the most formidable women that I've ever met. And then I had to Google formidable. And and then I was like, it basically comes down to commanding presence when one walks into the room without even asking for it, having a certain type of strength. Some people might see that as a negative, but I was like, whoa, that's the best compliment anyone's ever given me. So it really does matter how you go into a situation. I can read people's boundaries very clear about when they do want to talk about something, they don't want to talk about something. That is something that you personally can give out without even having to get into certain things. If somebody asks you a question, like I've had people reach out to me and they're like, oh, what's your political view? And if I don't know them, I'm like, I don't talk politics with people I just don't know. I just don't, you
Yeah.
know, because I mean, I don't know you from a hole in the wall. We could do this all day long. It could trigger something in me. Like, unless it's something that I'm choosing to do with someone that I know is just as open and able to receive information, then that's when I would choose to talk about something. Even if it's as simple as like a relationship, or if you're going through a breakup, you can very well tell people energetically that you don't want to talk about it, you know? And if someone pushes, you make that fine line, like, oh yeah, I'm not discussing that today. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be anything aggressive. Like, boundaries are really something that are personal. It's about you. It could be also based on your day. Maybe you wake up that day and you're like, wow, I'm really sensitive. I don't know if I can handle this type of conversation. You just have to figure out what that is. We're in such a world of unknown and
Mm-hmm.
confusion that we need to be direct about the things that we need, about the things that we want, and about the things that we can or cannot talk about. So my suggestion is always, figure out where you stand on whatever it is that is being approached to you, and don't be afraid to say, I don't feel like speaking about that right now.
So that's really good advice, because sometimes you just want to be nice, and then you put yourself in a place where you don't feel good. Like you said,
Right.
you're not honoring that relationship with yourself.
Correct.
So people
And it,
treat you that way.
yes. And it is about honoring your space, because, there are things that are personal, and that you want to keep private. I don't care what it is. It could come down to, like, what tea you drink. If you don't feel like sharing what tea you drink, just be like, I'm not comfortable sharing what tea I drink, Like, it could be that simple. And actually, this happens a lot. So, as an anxiety sufferer, I am on anti-anxiety meds, and they're an SSRI. And so many people always ask me, what meds are you on? And I say I'm very, very specific. And I say, I absolutely never talk about what medication I'm on, because everyone's different. Every body is different.
Yes.
My genetic makeup is different than your genetic makeup. And you have to go on that path with yourself, with a psychiatrist, and you guys together have to figure out what works for you, and not base it off of somebody else, because that's where you go into a little bit of a dangerous cycle of like, well, if it works for them, it's going to work for me. That's untrue.
Right.
It's just not the way that our bodies work at all.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because obviously with social media and some people being very public about what they're doing because maybe it's therapeutic for them or it's just how they function, like you said, everybody has different boundaries that they set and everybody has different things that they want to share. People are just blindly doing, well, she looks good and I'm just going to copy that, and they're putting themselves in a place where they're not honoring themselves and giving themselves the best that they could. Like you said, that there's different genetic makeup, there's so many different components to everyone's journey. So definitely love that you encourage to figure out what that is for you and not just go based on, I don't know, a YouTube video, which is totally fine. YouTube is a great resource for social media or the internet, but everyone needs to go on that journey themselves with a professional.
You have to be your own researcher.
Yes.
You have to be your own researcher, your own data analyst, because you're the only person that knows what goes on in your body.
Yeah.
And even if you do have a doctor, etc., if something's still not feeling right, it's not right.
Yes.
Then it's not right for you. And don't be afraid to say anything. Like, always speak up about what's not working for you. I feel like so many people always think I'm plant-based based off of like my social network. And no, I eat meat. I eat everything. I mean, it's so funny how people just make these assumptions. And not everything's going to work for everyone. It won't. And I love carbs. Carbs work for me. If I don't have carbs, I don't feel right. Like for my body, that's just, I don't know why that's a thing. It just is. I think forcing yourself into a certain box or forcing yourself to look a certain way and be a certain way, you're always going to be unhappy. That's not the point of life. Like you were given this body and the soul, and honor it, like let it be. Stop trying to force it into something that it might not want to be. Like I have very curly hair. It is crazy. It is. And that, you know what? It's the way it is. I can't change it. It just is. So I just go with it,
Yeah. I love that. And you're like the right person because to talk about this, because you are so inquisitive with yourself. And that's why you've been on this journey and you continue to be on this journey. You continue to grow. I was looking at one of your videos. I think it was your book launch. And we were talking about
that was a brutal one. No, that was brutal. Hardest speech I ever gave in my life. Really.
You were so funny.
Oh, it was so hard. Yeah, because my parents were there. That was the first time I had to share my suffering verbally to them.
So you mentioned that you had gone to see some therapists and like they all gave you different advice. And you listened to yourself and you honored yourself and you kept on looking and searching and figuring out what worked best for you. So when you said that story, like honor yourself, everybody's different, I just totally thought like, she's not talking about this didn't happen yesterday. This is over.
Oh, this is
like
years.
But I want our listeners to know that this is years and years of you investigating yourself, getting real with yourself, asking yourself, tuning into yourself and saying, what do I need? This doesn't sound right because this person diagnosed this or this person said that. But
I had a therapist. I was 19. Was I 19? And I had a therapist tell my mother that I should drop out of college and that I was a lesbian. And I was like, what? Like, why haven't we discussed this? What are you talking about? It was so bananas. And I mean, and that's why I always say, go with your gut intuition. Intuition is really important. And I knew, well, clearly after that, I never saw that person again. But I mean, when you're seeking out any type of therapist or, whatever it is that you're looking for, you want to do your research and you want to have a consult with at least 3 people. If you're speaking to doctors about something, you usually get a second evaluation. Like, so you need to do that with your mental health too. And the one question I always ask my clients, because most of them are in therapy, and I always say, what type of therapist do you see? And nobody can answer it. They don't know if there's a psychologist, a psychoanalyst. They don't know what therapy they practice. Like, please just figure out who you're seeing. It makes a difference. And these are the things that we forget. Like, you're the one that has to interview someone as well. Are they good for you? Are they specialized in what you might want to speak about? These are things that you need to ask. Don't be afraid to ask the important questions.
Yeah, because it is your health. And
yeah, we only get this is it. We get this one vessel and this one mind, and it's not a dress rehearsal. Like, this is it.
So I really wanted to shed light on that because like you were 19 and we're not going to talk age now, but clearly we're not 19 anymore.
Yes, no, clearly.
So 21 I would say okay maybe, but 19 no. So I just want people to know that this is not like you woke up maybe a couple months ago and you're like, oh, I think I'm gonna do this. This is like a life journey.
Oh yeah,
you are full of information.
Yeah, I think when you get really lost, you search and it's why I went into psychology. It's how I found acupuncture. I was doing acupuncture at age, I want to say probably 17. I mean, I found acupuncture at a very young time in my life. And then my sister ended up becoming an acupuncturist because I took her to one of my appointments. So Yeah, this journey, it takes a long time. And I do have a lot of clients that are in their like 20s, and they think that they need to have it figured out. Why isn't it better? Why am I not in my dream job? Like, all of it takes time.
Yeah.
Everything takes time. It takes time to understand who you are, what you stand for. I mean, so, right now, people voted for the first time in their lives, you know, and we don't really even know how democracy even works. Like, I was listening to someone say, we take our ballot, we fill it out, it goes into a scanner, and then what? Like, then then where? That what? I don't know. Where did it go? You know?
Yeah.
So like, there's just so much that we need to learn and understand, and we're not going to do it tomorrow. I mean, I've been coaching for 14 years now. I've been living in Manhattan for 20 years. I mean, I've had many different lives in my life. And coaching has always been a part of it, but this is like my end game, right? Because I knew in my 40s this is where I would end up. But let's not forget the path, the long journey of how we got here. Because a lot of people, they don't just wake up and end up somewhere. Like, they've
Wait, did
gone
you say
through
40?
life. Yeah, I'm 42.
Okay, you didn't have to say that, but you look like you're 24, guys. So
I never mind talking about my age. I'm always happy to tell people. Yes.
I would be too if I looked like I was 24. So, guys, mental anxiety, relationships, like having that relationship with yourself and uncovering and understanding, you can also be like Trish, looking like you're 24 at 42. She's just glowing and she's so young and full of energy. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like,
No.
people
It's
can notice.
genetics. It's genetics too. My parents look very young.
Okay, well, I wanted to say that, maybe it's your lifestyle, but it's a combination.
Yes, it's a great combination. Because of this work, what I was saying before is like that journey. I was just so lost and feeling like the weight of the world, because I was hiding so much. Hiding is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, and it can wear on you. And I was in nightlife. I mean, I worked 6 nights a week. I came home at 7 in the morning. I went to school all day. I didn't sleep for years. And I'm shocked. And people are shocked that I look as young as I do,
Yes.
because, they're like, wow, how did nightlife not age you? I was like, I don't know, man. Lots of self-care. Like, and self-care in terms of like, all day Sunday, I would go to a spa, and I would make sure I like de-stressed and made sure
Mhm.
that I was running around a nightclub in 4.5-inch heels every
Okay.
night. So yes, my feet had to be taken care of. Like, there's rollers in my living room, like to this day. Like, if I'm watching TV, I make sure that I roll out and I stretch, and it's constant. It's not like a one-off,
Right.
like you have to treat your body a certain way. And my husband is so healthy, and he's 50 and looks great. So I don't know what's going on in this house. Because he's so mindful, it makes me even more mindful. So like, the two of us play off each other really well. And we met at a much later time. I met him at 39. So my life with him started much later than, I would say, the norm stigma. And I never did anything the normal way. That's just
No.
that was never my path, because I think everything just happens the way that it should happen if you don't force anything. Don't force an agenda. Don't beat yourself up about things. Like, you just gotta, kind of put your hands up and go with it. Go with the fear, not against the fear.
Yes, which is very scary.
Oh
But
yeah.
once you get there, there's another wonderful, beautiful side waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, you're definitely proof of that.
Oh, thank you. That's so
You're
sweet.
welcome. I mean, okay, so out of the beauty circle, I love to ask, we obviously know that you excel in relationships, meaning like you even have, is it a course or is it like a breakup? Um,
Oh, so I'm part of a breakup boot camp.
Boot camp.
So the founder, this woman, Amy Chan, and I've been with her since the beginning. And so we do these breakup boot camps in California and upstate New York. Obviously now they're virtual, but they're fantastic. So yes, they are for women who are going through breakups. And even if you're not in a breakup, it's still if you want to change your pattern.
Right.
Because we tend to repeat our patterns.
And I mean, I don't want to get sidetracked, but this is so fascinating to me, especially during these times where people are experiencing divorce or people are not getting along. But it doesn't have to be like a breakup with a partner. It could also be a breakup with your job. I feel like there's so many different kinds of breakups.
Oh yeah, there's friendship breakups
Yes,
are
that was
brutal.
my next one.
Yep. I've gone through those. So right now, everything's falling apart a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But will be put back together. People losing their jobs means that they feel they lost their identity, and that's where anxiety will
Right.
trigger and get spiked. And then if you're, going through a breakup with a partner, or maybe even right now with the whole election, people have lost friends. There is a lot of loss, but what I always say is, when we lose things, I think the universe finds a way to give back in some way. You just have to be open, right? So we just need to be open for it.
Open.
Yes, open.
So we know that you excel in the beauty circle. There's 10 categories, and I feel like you excel in relationships on all different aspects of it because you're so in tune with yourself. And you have been able to, through the years, cultivate these amazing tools that seem so easy when you say them, but it takes a long time, like even tuning in the morning, for the first 5 minutes. And now you can do it in 2 minutes, which, by the way, guys, it takes a while. Like I've tried this and I'm like, what do I need today? And my mind starts racing. Well, I want to go here and I want to go there. And then it's like, no, that's not what I need. What do I need today? So you make it sound so like it's just easy, but I want to just keep on stressing that this is years and years of practice that's why I feel like you are the person that I chose for this category. So being that you excel in this category, is there a category in the circle that you feel like recently you haven't been doing your best in?
Oh yeah, the conscious eating is out the window. That went out the window. I would say leading up to the election, this whole week. Like I said before, I had pizza for breakfast, and I made these amazing cookies on Saturday. Like I'm pasta ragu. I'm just kind of like nurturing myself.
Yeah,
But
comforting.
oh my God, comfort food. And I did it. Oh, and the wine was flowing, and I just, me and my husband just said, whatever works this week, right? It's not forever. It's not the norm. It's this week, and you just got to make yourself feel good and happy. And then once you kind of give yourself that deadline of like, okay, but like yesterday I was like, okay, and we're back, right? And we're back. And then I just try to be more mindful. But yes, conscious eating, like if there's chocolate, there's always chocolate in this house, and I will eat it. I will eat all of it. I love chocolate. And it's funny because I always say to myself, okay, let's play a game. So did I hit at least, my 15 minutes of movement? Did I hit something else? And if I did, I'm like, okay, now you need 2 pieces of chocolate. Like you did so well. So like I try to give myself like a reward system. And then if I'm like, oh, okay, so for breakfast, I tend to be very healthy. And then for lunch, I'll go all out, potato chips and whatever else. And then dinner, I'll be mindful. So I'm trying to just find different categories where I can be more mindful. But last week, none of that was happening. And I was okay with it. I didn't care.
That's awesome. But I have to say, I think you were still eating consciously because you were aware that this isn't your norm and you needed it for your soul, for just to.
Yeah, it was conscious. It wasn't, yes, it was. And it was like, the group of us. So it was like me, my husband, our friend, like we were our little social pod. And I'm like, you know what, guys, like, let's just go all out. We did hike. We still hiked for 4 miles.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and I was like, all right, now we're gonna go hit mimosas, you know. So I think yes. So we still were conscious. I think allowing yourself permission to do certain things. So like, you know, give yourself permission if you're really struggling, and if you're like, you know what, I'm gonna eat this because it makes me feel better. It's not a choice I'm gonna make. I'm gonna make going forward, but it's like I like sometimes we just want that permission.
And it sounds like you were consciously eating. You knew when, okay, now it's time to get back on our regular routine where we age in reverse in this household.
Yes.
One day we'll get like your full menu. What does she eat? Yeah. So, thank you for sharing that. And, I ask this to everyone who comes on the podcast to share something about themselves that no one knows yet. If you're comfortable with that, like just something like it could be like you play the ukulele or,
Well, I do own a motorcycle.
ooh,
So I own a Ducati Monster 900. He's way too big for me, but I love him. And I used to post about him, but I haven't because of
does he have
COVID.
a name?
Hunter. His
Hunter.
name's
Oh,
Hunter. Mm-hmm. He's awesome. I should post him this week. But I just, because of COVID, he's at a friend's house, so I'm not going there. But yeah, that's always interesting for people to know, just because I am
yeah.
very short and that it's way too big of a bike. I'm on my tippy toes when I ride. Um, and I actually did play the violin growing up
Ooh.
all through high school. Yep, love
I'm
the
a little
violin.
jealous. I always
Um,
wanted to play the
I
violin.
still have it. My E string is broken, but that's on my list. I would like to, get it fixed and see how it works. See if I got it. So yeah, I played the violin.
Wow.
And as much as of a tomboy I am, because I'm very much into cars and farming and dirt and my horses. I did ballet my whole life, and I love ballet. So there's a lot of extremes going on.
I
So
think
it's not just it's funny. It's not just one thing. Oh, and I can't cook at all. My husband cooks. I don't know. I don't pretend to cook. I bake, but I won't. I don't know how to cook,
I
and
can't
I'm okay
bake,
with it.
but I can cook.
Okay, so we would match up.
Yeah. So you bake.
We can live together. I'm a very masculine personality. So something that my therapist back in the day was like, let's round it out. How do we balance this? And I was like, oh, I'll go back. I'll go to Joffrey Ballet again. He was like, perfect. So I feel like I found a nice little balance between both extremes.
Nice, nice. And the last question before we run out of time is if you could, you know, give some advice to our listeners who may be stuck or struggling in a situation of that maybe you were in the past, like when you were struggling with anxiety and maybe didn't know exactly what outlet to go or how to go about it. Like what advice would you give them to help them overcome or to even get started?
Well, I would say try to take the shame away. I think a lot of people are embarrassed or shamed, or feel shameful. There's this idea of normal. People say it all the time. Well, I'm just not normal. Well,
Right.
nobody's normal. Um, there's, especially with mental health, there's those who have anxiety and those who don't have anxiety. There's those who have depression and those that don't have depression. So we have to be mindful about how we're talking about things, and how we talk to ourselves. So to one, never be ashamed of what you're going through, because everybody on this planet is going through something right now. And more likely than not, we're probably all going through similar things. So you have to just find one person that you can share with, have one person be able to be a nice soundboard that could help start the process, where you're like, hey, I'm feeling this way. And then from there, then start to uncover what are the next steps, because there has to be steps. Life doesn't just happen to us. You have to happen to your life.
Yes.
So you have to take control. If you feel a certain way, then you can change that. We have that power. We have choices every single day. And I'm still an anxiety sufferer. I still get really bad panic attacks, and it happens. And when it happens, I wake up the next day and I'm like, and that was yesterday. Today's a new day, and I move on. I don't let it define me. I don't let it bring me down. And you just have to do the best you can. So the first step is sharing with somebody. The second step is putting things into place. Where can you go? What can you do? Who could you reach out to? And that's in any department: mental health, eating disorders, addictions. I mean, there's somebody for everybody out there, and we need to be very, very, very adamant about taking care of our mental health.
Where can we find you? Because you have so much information. Anyone listening, she has amazing tools on her Instagram, and there's a link tree on there that has so many things. She offers some free contract, the love contract, which I saw. That's pretty cool. There's an article about it. There's just so much that she has to offer, not just about anxiety, which is her main thing, but there's so much. There's life coaching. There's just a lot. So tell us where we can find you, where we can contact you. Tell us a little bit about, what you offer, like what our listeners can get from you.
So, due to pandemic, I do have a wait list, which it moves pretty fast. So my website is my name, trishbarillas.com. There's a button on there. There's an info to send you to my assistant. She will add you to the wait list. If you're looking for coaching, I have pandemic coaching, and then I have my full rate. Pandemic coaching is 50% off of my full rate. Everything is via phone. I'm not seeing anybody in my office as of yet. So I am located in Soho in New York. And then my two Instagrams are at T Barillas, and then the book is at A Face of Anxiety. I do have my YouTube channel. There are going to be 2 more contracts coming out. I have a love contract self, which is your self-love contract. And then I have a contract for when you start dating someone. So those will be available for purchase soon on my website. And then usually I would say that the best way to figure out if coaching is right for you, I do a 15-minute consult with everybody to make sure that we are a good fit. If for some reason that we're not, then I will refer you out to someone else. And then my assistant will communicate how that works. So she would be the first process.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. If you haven't already, you need to go check her out and check out all her content. It's really, really cool, impressive, and so informative. She's giving out so much to the world and the universe with her knowledge and information. I just couldn't stop watching all the videos on YouTube. It was just so funny. You can definitely get a sense of her personality. And if she's a good fit for you, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to her, and please go get your free love contract on her Linktree. Thank you so much for being on here and sharing with us. And I cannot wait. Probably we'll have a part 2 in the future.
I would love that.
And maybe it'll be in person one day. Maybe you'll bake.
Oh, yes. Let's manifest that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was so lovely to have Trish on the show and really share all of her tips and tricks, especially when it comes to the relationship with yourself and really how to deal with anxiety and stress. For more tips and tricks, please visit her on her Instagram. All the links will be in the show notes. And Trish was so nice that for the giveaway this week, she is offering 2 signed copies of her book. Yes, you heard that right. 2 signed copies of her book. Now, the question you have to answer for the giveaway is what is something that we don't know about Trish. And how to enter that will be when this airs, there will be a post on Instagram where you have an opportunity to comment what that is. And then the winner will be chosen on Friday. So guys, good luck to you, and I hope to hear your comments.